So in this video, we are going back to where it all began with the first One Piece chapter, released all the way back in July 1997 with the knowledge we know now, seeing how Oda foreshadowed a shocking amount of what was to come, including in very recent chapters, almost 30 years ago now. And of course, we may yet get further clues, and we will, of more reveals yet to come by looking at this first chapter once more. So make sure to stay tuned for this one. Chill the Pirate King within and smash that like button if you enjoy One Piece videos like this one on the channel and want to keep them coming. Make this the video you join the Nakama if you haven't already by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future One Piece videos and updates.
Quick thank you to Isekai Slow Life for sponsoring this video. You guys know how much we love isekai anime on this channel, and you definitely know how much we love anime waifus. Like, seriously, I probably make a waifu reference in every single video. But what if there was a game that perfectly combines my love of isekai and my love of beautiful anime waifus? Isekai Slow Life allows you to enter a beautiful new world where you manage and develop your own town. A town that just happens to be full of beautiful and bizarre waifus that you get to meet and engage with while discovering magical unknown lands and enjoying a quiet life. Not only does this sound absolutely perfect for me, but Isekai Slow Life is having a collaboration with the legendary anime isekai That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. That's right, bounce into the new storyline with new characters, new gameplay, new gift packs, new achievements, and more. You can go fishing, visit the inn, go to school, the blacksmith shop, or even a magic farm, all in the company of your favorite anime girl. And speaking of waifus and slime, my favorite is Joyce, the slime girl bartender who uses her unique body to produce special drinks. Nice. Try it out for yourself, just click the link in the description or use my QR code to download Isekai Slow Life right now, for free. You might get into some slimy situations, but it's worth it, so check it out, link in the description.
And now, without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. Because again, we are reading the first chapter, but from the perspective of someone who has read all 1,145 chapters that have been released so far. So right off the bat, we get the title of the chapter, which is Romance Dawn. In literature, romance is a narrative that involves a mysterious and adventurous storyline, which makes sense for a story like One Piece, which really captures that excitement and sense of adventure, like no other, arguably. However, the dawn part is truly the crazy foreshadowing part. The dawn, if you think about it, is like the beginning of the day. So it's like symbolically the beginning of Luffy's adventure on a very straightforward level. But as we know now, there's much more significance to the word dawn now than just that in One Piece. In fact, we got one of the biggest One Piece world lore drops ever recently with chapter 1138, where we saw a big mural at Elbaf and Robin read about a great war. She reads, "The first world. Within the earth there was fire. Mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun. The enslaved prayed, and the sun god appeared. The earth god raged, and with its serpent of hellfire shrouded the world in death and darkness, and they will never meet. The second world. Within the void there was breath. The forest god tamed demons, and the sun spread the fires of war. Those of the half-moon dreamed, those of the moon dreamed. Man killed the sun and became god, and the sea god stormed, and they will never meet. The third world. Within the chaos there was emptiness. The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and hear the voice of the half-moon." Just on a side note, half-moon is the shape of D, and we all know the significance of D and the will of D in One Piece, but moving on. "The sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. The sun returns and brings a new morning, and they will surely meet," end quote. Huge, groundbreaking reveals in that chapter, and this stuff, which is pretty much the destiny and prophecy part of One Piece, is very telling. That new morning, or pretty much the dawn of the new world, is where the story is heading, and the protagonist of the first chapter is none other than the named sun god, as we found out from the poem. Luffy is the sun in a way that returns in this first chapter, as we'll get into, and the one who will inevitably bring that new morning or dawn. So this is the dawn of the dawn in a way. In other words, this first chapter is the beginning of the story that will inevitably lead to the new beginning for the world, called the new morning in the poem. It all gets rolling and set into motion in this first chapter, as we'll talk about. But that's more than enough time spent on the title itself, I think. Let's jump into the actual events of the chapter, which start out with a bang. In fact, my brother thinks this is one of the best manga openings ever. We are told Gold Roger, the king of the pirates, had it all. Wealth, fame, and power had all been his. Not surprisingly, the final words he spoke before they lopped off his head inspired adventurers throughout the world to sail the seas. Roger says, "My treasure? Why, it's right where I left it. It's yours if you can find it, but you'll have to search the whole world." The narrator continues saying the world is about to witness a great era of piracy. So reading this after so many years, we might think about how we now know that his name wasn't really Gold Roger at all, but Goldie Roger, and the first name was just the world government hiding the identity of the D's from the world, like they tried to do with Luffy as well. And we now know how a guy who had all that wealth, fame, and power was caught in the first place because he was already dying from illness and he let himself be caught on purpose. That also helps explain why he's smiling, because this is all going according to his plan. Oda and Roger here are also setting up that in order to find this legendary treasure, Luffy is going to travel across the whole world, something we've been witnessing these past 3 decades. We start the story after the Roger intro in a small harbor village where for a year now Shanks' pirate ship has been using it as a base. We know now that Shanks was actually an apprentice pirate on Roger's crew, so he's directly tied to the Pirate King we just heard about on the previous page, not that new readers would know that yet. One of the first things we see is not Shanks but his Jolly Roger, and it shows the 3 scars on his face that we know he got from Blackbeard. And Blackbeard is Luffy's character foil and probably the character who will end up being the final boss fight of the entire series. This reference to him so early on makes it even more likely that in the end it will come down to Luffy and Blackbeard. So from the beginning, Blackbeard's existence, the darkness to Luffy's sun, was being hinted at, if you can believe it. Kid Luffy is introduced showing his bravery and or stupidity that will characterize his future behavior too by taking a knife and almost cutting his eye out. You'll still see that scar under his left eye to this day. He wanted to show Shanks and the others how tough he is so that they would take him seriously. Another thing to note is that his shirt says anchor. That's foreshadowing the fact that soon he will eat a devil fruit and devil fruit users sink like an anchor in the sea. They become weak and helpless in it, as we know now. Obviously, there's another reason he's called Anchor already too, but we'll get to that. Shanks toasts to Luffy's courage, while Luffy insists that he's not the least bit afraid of getting hurt, so they should take him on their next voyage. He wants to be a pirate too. Ironically, Shanks laughs at the idea of Luffy becoming a pirate, saying it's impossible. He even says that they call him Anchor because he can't swim, and then he asks, what good is a pirate who can't swim? So much irony here looking back at it, not just because Luffy will obviously end up becoming a great pirate, even a Yonko, but furthermore, Shanks must know about a lot of great pirates that have devil fruits and thus can't swim. For instance, Whitebeard is a big one that comes to mind. So this is definitely one of those statements that hits a lot different when you first read it and when you read it again 1150 chapters later. Luffy tells him he's been training and that his punch is as powerful as a pistol. That's not only foreshadowing his devil fruit named attacks like Gum Gum Pistol and Gum Gum Bazooka, but also how strong he will become. That statement, despite sounding super unrealistic, coming from a small kid like Luffy here, becomes a reality. Another example of how Luffy wills and acts his dreams into reality over time. This chapter also emphasized early on that one of the best parts of being a pirate is having freedom. And really, the series is all about freedom to the point where being the Pirate King, which is Luffy's dream, means being the freest. Shanks tells him he's just too young to join him and says maybe in 10 years he'll give him a chance, which is around when Luffy's pirating starts. But as we know, he starts by himself and not under Shanks. I also love the joke Shanks plays on Luffy here. He tells him to not get upset and have some milk. When Luffy drinks the milk, he cries laughing, saying, "See, a real pirate would never drink milk," end quote. Ben Beckman defends Shanks to Luffy, saying he's just doing what's best for everyone. And he gives him a sneak peek into how dangerous being a pirate can be and into the responsibilities of a captain when he says, and I quote, "The safety of the entire crew and ship rests on his shoulders," end quote. Luffy will feel this on multiple occasions, like when Ace dies before his eyes, or when he is helpless to save his crew from Kuma pre-timeskip. Obviously, we now know that they'll be fine, but at the time, Luffy truly felt his failure as a captain, and experienced firsthand the truth of Ben Beckman's words when the latter said, "Being a pirate isn't all fun and games, you know," end quote. There's a part where Luffy asks Makino, the proprietor of the tavern, to put his food on his treasure tab. He says he's gonna become a pirate, find lots of treasure, and then come back and pay her. She says, and I quote, "We'll celebrate together when you return," end quote. Now this is one of those things that hasn't happened yet, but I fully expect to see this scene materialize by the end of the story once Luffy has become the Pirate King and found the One Piece. So that's something else that the first chapter gives us to look forward to. Then we get the infamous introduction of the Mountain Bandits. Their leader, Higuma the Bear, calls the Red Hair Pirates a sorry lot. Of course, the great irony here is that this is arguably one of the strongest pirate crews out there already, and Higuma clearly has no idea what he's talking about. It is at this key point that Luffy is seen eating a devil fruit absentmindedly. We will circle back to the massive significance of that in a bit. So Higuma wants some liquor, but Makino just served the last of it to the Red Hair Pirates. Shanks, who has not been established as a legendary figure yet, or even as a strong one in the eyes of a new reader, says he feels guilty and offers him an unopened bottle for free. A very nice gesture. All the more nice when we figure out how strong he is and that he doesn't have to do it at all. Higuma answers his nice gesture by breaking the bottle off of Shanks and spilling its contents all over him. You gotta love the little details here. The Red Hair Pirates put on serious expressions. They are clearly waiting to see how Shanks, their captain, wants to handle this situation. Luffy is shocked and shown still eating the fruit. Then we get some of the moments that are unbelievably comedic on a reread. It's like Oda wrote the chapter to reward the rereaders almost even more than the actual first-time readers. Higuma tries to intimidate Shanks by showing him a wanted poster of himself. It is 8 million berries. To put that in perspective, Shanks was on the Pirate King's crew whose bounty was over 5.5 billion berries, and his own bounty, when it's introduced to us, will be over 4 billion. So only rereaders can appreciate how truly hilarious this moment is, where someone actually tries to intimidate Shanks with a measly 8 million berry bounty. Shanks is not listening to Higuma at all though. He's concerned about the mess and apologizes to Makino. He says, "Give me a rag and I'll clean it up." On rereading, you have a newfound respect for this guy. Keep in mind, we know now that he is biologically at least a celestial dragon, a people who generally feel like they are too good to even breathe the same air as normal people, and here Shanks, despite his station and strength, is bending down and cleaning up a mess so a bartender doesn't have to do it. Instead of counting his lucky stars and running, Higuma, who still doesn't know how strong Shanks is, continues to push Shanks around. He creates a bigger mess for him, saying, "So, you like to clean? That'll keep you busy for a while." Higuma leaves with a smirk on his face saying, "Farewell, cowards," thinking he proved his own superiority. Now, from a new reader's perspective, and to Kid Luffy's perspective, what is about to happen will come off completely differently than it will for us. Makino asks Shanks if he is okay, and if he is hurt, Shanks says he's fine. No harm done. He even exhales saying, "Phew," which we know now would sooner be the relief that he didn't have to kill those guys than the relief of someone who was scared and got away safely, but Luffy doesn't know that. A dead giveaway that Shanks was in no real danger though is that his crew breaks out into laughter, saying he got you good to Shanks. Shanks himself breaks out into laughter as well. They see the humorous side of it that I mentioned, a weak bandit with a measly 8 million berry bounty waving his sword around and acting like a big shot in front of the Red Hair and his crew. Keep in mind, Shanks has been on Roger's crew, he's fought Blackbeard already and got those scars from him, he's dueled the greatest swordsman in the world, Mihawk, and impressed Whitebeard in the process, for crying out loud, and here he's letting a petty bandit think he's got him beat. Luffy and the new reader, of course, don't know all this. Luffy misjudges the situation, saying, "You think it's funny?" He screams, "He made you look like a weakling. Why didn't you fight him? Sure, they outnumbered you and maybe they looked pretty tough, but what kind of man lets himself be treated like that and then laughs about it? You're a disgrace to all pirates," end quote. Poor Luffy doesn't know how wrong he is. Shanks just smiles and says, "When you grow up, maybe you'll understand. He just got some grog on me. That's all. Needless killing doesn't make you a man." When Luffy starts walking away, Shanks grabs his arm and says, "Hey, where are you going?" Luffy says to go find a real role model, but as Shanks is holding on to him, Luffy's arm keeps stretching as Luffy keeps walking. All the pirates are shocked. They see that the devil fruit they took from the enemy ship is no longer in the chest. Luffy admits that he ate it when they show him a picture of what it looked like. At first, Shanks is freaking out, showing how much bigger a deal this is than the bandit situation where he stayed as cool as a cucumber. He screams, "That was the gum fruit, the fruit of the devil. It's one of the secret treasures of the sea. If you eat it, your entire body becomes like rubber, and you will never be able to swim for the rest of your life. You idiot." For once, the usually cool, calm, and collected Shanks completely loses it. At the time, this was a devil fruit, and after a few chapters, you'd find out that it was one of many devil fruits. As the story goes on, you find out that there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of devil fruits. But almost 30 years later, we know now why Shanks and his crew reacted so extremely. It's not just a devil fruit. It's not even the gum fruit. In fact, it's the mythical zone sun god Nika fruit. The sun imagery goes with the dawn in the title of the chapter too. Perhaps the fruit won't awaken for a bit, but this is the moment where Luffy became the new sun god. Or should I say was chosen. It looked kind of like a coincidence that he ate it, but we learned since then that zone devil fruits have wills of their own, and there's little doubt that the sun god fruit chose Luffy to eat it, sensing he was compatible. Now, we still don't know the specifics of this, like did it call to him in some discreet energetic way or what, but that's not really important for the purposes of this video. This is the moment that Luffy got the same sun god devil fruit that Joy Boy had. The one that Shanks, who usually doesn't like to stir the boat, attacked a world government ship to get. It's totally possible and even probable that Shanks knew the significance of that specific devil fruit and that it was tied to the prophecy about the new Joy Boy and Sun God and the Dawn and the reason Goldie Roger said he was too early. It's all being set up right here in the first chapter. Moving on, and Luffy finds himself alone with Makino in her bar. She asks Luffy if he misses the pirates, but he says after the mountain bandits humiliated them, he doesn't miss them at all. He says he really misjudged those guys. He thought they were brave and tough, but they're just a bunch of wimps. Makino wonders if he is sure about that and whether sometimes it takes more courage not to fight. But Luffy just says she doesn't understand, since a real man has to stand up for himself no matter what. Then Higuma walks into the bar yet again. Before long, the mountain bandits are ganging up on Luffy and Makino has to call the mayor for help. The bystanders are afraid to interfere since the mountain bandits would kill them probably, and they say Luffy started the fight anyways. Luffy continues to fight, asking them to take it back. We'll later find out what he wants them to take back. Eventually, Higuma stomps on his face, saying he was just drinking and talking with his men. He didn't even say anything to offend Luffy, but Luffy says he did and he better apologize. The mayor gets down on his knees and begs for Luffy's life, offering money if that's what they want. He says, just don't hurt the boy. You can appreciate his bravery in getting involved despite not having the strength to fight them compared to the others, who didn't even want to risk getting involved out of their own self-safety and interest. Higuma says that it's too late though. No one can save this brat now. He's done the unpardonable. He attacked me and he called me names. When Luffy keeps insulting him, Higuma announces that he's gonna kill him. That's when Shanks steps in, saying he was wondering why nobody came to greet them at the harbor. I love how the first thing he does is to lightheartedly tease Luffy. He says, "Luffy, I thought your punch was as powerful as a pistol." After last time, Higuma thinks he's already got these guys quivering in their boots. He says, "You'd better back off before you get hurt. Come any closer and we'll have to kill you cowards." But this isn't about a mess anymore. This is about Luffy, and Shanks is not gonna let that slide. A bandit points a gun at his head and threatens to blow Shanks' head off. Again, they're acting the part of big shots and the rest of the bandits laugh. But Shanks and his crew don't need to act. They are the big shots. Shanks, without a worry or fear in the world, calmly says, "You're putting your life on the line by pointing that at me. I'm saying it's not safe to point guns." And the next moment, the next thing you know, shit hits the fan. The truth is revealed when we see Lucky Roo blow the bandit's brains out. We can tell this is no big deal to him either because he doesn't even stop eating while he takes his life. And unlike the 4Kids dub, it's not a cork gun, but the real deal. Suddenly, it's revealed who the pretenders are. One of my favorite lines is when one of the bandits says, "That wasn't fair." And the red-haired pirates laugh at the idea of fair, and Ben Beckman says, "Stop whining, landlubbers. You're not dealing with saints here." Shanks says, "We're pirates and we don't play by the rules." Shanks has an iconic little speech here. He says, "Listen up, you can pour drinks on me, you can throw food at me, you can even spit on me. I'll just laugh that stuff off. But good reason or not, nobody hurts a friend of mine." Luffy is touched as he's shown with the foot still on his face, repeating the word friends. Higuma then sends the mountain bandits to attack them, and Ben Beckman shows them a small taste of the crew's power when he handles them all on his own. A highlight is definitely when he puts out his cigarette in one of their eyes. He even nerfs himself willingly since he just uses his gun as a club, whereas we know now that his gun is enough to get even someone of Admiral Kizaru's caliber to stop and put his hands up. But I guess Ben Beckman knows there's no need to kill ants with a sledgehammer. Even Luffy finally sees the truth when he says, "Wow, he's strong." The hilarious thing is that now the smug Higuma is scared to death, and all he can say is, "But the brat started it." Shanks just says, "Doesn't matter. There's a price on your head, isn't there?" And here we get the first moment where seasoned veterans will start to question how realistic some of this stuff actually is. Higuma uses a smoke bomb to escape. He escapes with Luffy, and Shanks freaks out saying, "Oh no, I let him escape. We've got to save Luffy." Now, if you know what happens later on in the story, we might be thinking, but what about the speed of the red-haired pirates? Is it possible for Higuma to escape considering their speed? What about their observation haki? Shouldn't at least some of them be able to sense Higuma and Luffy and where they are? Let me know if you have your own answers for how this could happen to them, but at this point you might have to chalk it up to them letting their guard down too much against an obviously inferior opponent. It's at this point you might start to wonder though if Oda didn't know he'd add certain things to the story yet, like observation haki and stuff, and if he didn't know how strong he'd let the guys actually get. You gotta at least respect how absolutely crazy Higuma is, because get this, he thinks he's safest at sea because no one would expect a mountain bandit to hide out there. So he thinks he's safe on his little boat. I wish we got to see the red-haired pirates just appear on their giant vessel, but as we know, that's not how things go down. Since Higuma doesn't need a hostage anymore, he kicks Luffy overboard, and as we know, Luffy couldn't swim before, and it's definitely even worse now because he has a devil fruit power. We then get the flashback of what started the fight in the first place, and it was the bandits bad-mouthing Shanks, calling him pathetic and a coward. That's what set Luffy off. He said, "Take back what you said about Shanks. He's not a coward. Stop talking bad about Shanks." And the funny thing is, 1,100 chapters later, Luffy still got similarly upset when Loki badmouthed Shanks. Not much has changed except Luffy's strength and thus ability to punish those who'd badmouth his role model more effectively. A Sea King aka Sea Monster appears. Even when Luffy takes off on his pirate journey 10 years later, he can handle one of these with a single punch. But right now, it's scary. It eats Higuma along with his ship like it was nothing, and then starts heading for Luffy. Shanks saves him in the nick of time and tells the Sea King to get out of here. The Sea King makes eye contact and freaks out, running away. Now, looking back at this moment, you could attribute this to Shanks' immensely powerful Conqueror's haki. But the thing that has kept One Piece fans debating for almost 3 decades is, how did Shanks manage to lose an arm to a lowly Sea King? We'll circle back to that, but for now, Shanks says Makino told him what happened, that Luffy stood up for him, and that he's sorry. He smiles and tells Luffy to stop crying and that he's a tough guy, remember? What makes this level of carefreeness and stoicism all the more impressive is that, as mentioned, this guy just got his arm torn off, as Luffy points out. He says, "It's a small price to pay, just an arm. I'm just glad you're okay." So there are many explanations people have given, from basic ones like Shanks just didn't have enough time, to more complex ones like he wanted to show Luffy the dangers of the sea and life, and an arm was a small price to pay for that lesson, to even people straight up saying that it was a bad decision Oda made that added drama to the chapter but doesn't really make sense 30 years later. Let me know what explanation you align with most in the comments, but what we do know is that Shanks did not become weaker without the arm, but it still shows how much he values Luffy. And we know Luffy is his friend, but now that we know about the truth of the Sun God Nika fruit and Luffy's role in the prophecy and destiny, it wouldn't be surprising if Shanks wanted to protect him all the more because of that too. As he tells Whitebeard later, when asked about his arm, he said, and I quote, "I made a bet on the future," end quote. An added bonus of losing the arm was that the narrator tells us Luffy now understood why Shanks wouldn't take him out to sea. The dangers of the sea were too great, and he was not yet strong enough. But most of all, Luffy realized what a great man Shanks was. He vowed to be just like him one day. Who knows, perhaps if Luffy didn't have that reality check early on, and as a result determined to prepare and get stronger, it's possible he wouldn't have made it as far as he did. Shanks losing his arm in front of him may be a big reason he is where he is today. By the end of the chapter, Luffy no longer wants to join the crew. He decides he'll become a pirate on his own. Shanks still teases him though, saying there's no way you can become a pirate. Luffy though promises that one day he'll have a ship and a crew better than Shanks's. Another comment that probably will come true since Luffy's crew will be the new Pirate King's crew. He even adds that his crew will have the biggest hoard of treasure in the world, a statement that would definitely make future Nami happy. We then get the most obvious and repeated bit of foreshadowing in the entire series, something that has also yet to happen, but it no doubt will. Luffy says, for the first time, but definitely not the last time, "I'm gonna be king of the pirates." Shanks smiles and then gives him the straw hat, saying, "Well then, do me a favor. Keep this hat safe for me. This hat means a lot to me. Promise that you'll give it back to me someday when you're a great pirate." And looking back, now we know how fitting it was that he gave him the hat when he said he'd be Pirate King, because although Luffy has no idea, the past Pirate King wore that straw hat too in the past. It's also become a kind of symbol for carrying on the will of the old Joy Boy, Roger, Shanks, and now Luffy. This moment also sets up a satisfying payoff later on, where Shanks and Luffy will meet again, and Luffy will get to potentially return the straw hat now that it's clear he's become a great pirate. Luffy arguably already is a great pirate currently in the story, but I think Oda wants to still save such an emotional payoff for closer to the end of the series. Ben Beckman predicts accurately that Luffy is going to make something of himself, while Shanks points out that he acts like he did when he was a kid. And so they sail into the distance with Kid Luffy watching them go. We're told Luffy's adventure begins 10 years later from this very same spot. The village is watching him set sail on his small little boat. A Sea King comes back for round 2 and Luffy uses an attack he's been perfecting since they last met, showing that the years were not wasted and he was preparing himself for his journey. He uses the move Gum Gum Pistol and the sea monster is sent running. Luffy decides he'll need 10 men for his crew, aka 10 additional crew members and a flag. If we look at the official Straw Hat members, not counting allies and stuff, we have 9, not counting Luffy himself. So this chapter predicted every single one of those members we got up to this point and lets us know to look out for one more official member before the story is through. Let me know who you think it'll be in the comments if you got any good ideas. At the end of the chapter, Luffy says, "Look out world, here I come," and for the second time in this chapter says, "I'm gonna be king of the pirates." The narrator says Luffy's tiny boat floats on, his crew yet to be found, Luffy's great voyage of destiny has begun. So even this early on, destiny was being spoken of and brought into the story way before we knew about any of the prophecies. Crazy to think how forward-looking Oda was from chapter 1, and crazy to see how far we've come. We've gone from Luffy being powerless against the mountain bandit to beating the living Yonko with the highest bounty, Kaido, previously called the strongest creature in the world. Let that sink in. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this blast from the past video, and if you did, then you won't want to miss this video on screen right now about all the Roger pirates explained, including Shanks. Link on screen right now. Like and subscribe for more One Piece, and I'll see you in the next one.